What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube channel. Happy Friday, guys. If you are new to the channel, make sure to do us one quick favor. Make sure to smash that subscribe button. It's the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with your host. I am one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. Can the Sixers avoid the play-in tournament? 2 games left in the regular season. We're going to get into that, what they need to go their way, and how they can accomplish achieving the number 6 seed. And what happens if they don't, Scotty? If they stay in the 7th seed and play the Miami Heat in the first game of the play-in tournament, we're going to talk about it all. The Phillies get to above 500 for the first time on the young season. They're now 7-6, and they just might have heard Howard Eskin yesterday questioning the great Rob Thompson, right? They started the Slug last night, 3 home run game for the Phillies. They took that one over in the later innings against the Pittsburgh Pirates after Ranger Suarez dealt.
Yes, sir.
Howie Roseman stays busy, man. CJ Uzuma, now a Philadelphia Eagle. Devontae Smith, contract talks, extension, starting to negotiate. We're going to talk about a lot this morning. Happy Friday, guys. What's going on, man?
What's going on, my brother? Happy to be here with you. Happy Friday, man. End of the week. It's been a long one. Yeah, man, we got a lot to get into. Obviously, some big moments coming up for the Sixers. We're finally to the part that matters, right? Like we talked about this at the beginning of the Sixers season, how
since
the regular season, it's like it's whatever, like the seeding, it's whatever. It's really not about that at all. It's about what they do in the playoffs anyways. Yep. It's about where they go in the playoffs. We have Embiid back, so that's kind of the wrench thrown in here late, right? And now the expectations are exactly where they need to be, right? And they're 4-0 since Embiid has come back. So I'm excited. Obviously, the Titans, man, they get off to a better ending last night. Now put together a few wins in a row there. I believe that it's a 2-game win streak so far. Hey,
yeah.
2 is 2. Hey, 1, 2, it's a win streak. 2 is a win streak. We're gonna take it.
They've won 3 or 4. They've won their last.
There we go. There we go.
They've won 2 straight series now.
We needed them to do that against the Reds and the Pirates, right? Like we needed them to take these series against these teams that they're better than, and that's what they're doing so far. Let's hope they can keep it up, man. But yeah, big Friday show here. Happy Friday to you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Let's start with the Phillies since they played last night, and then we'll quickly, nothing's ever too quick on the show here, man. But we'll get into Sixers in a little bit since they take action tonight as well. The Phillies, though, like you said, we talked on Monday about this schedule, and just how they have to take advantage, right? Because you get the Braves in the first 3 games of the season, and although we like to kind of flex our muscle a little bit and how we've knocked the Atlanta Braves out of the postseason the last 2 years, we know what they are in the regular season, and you kind of get knocked back down a peg or two to start the year, right? You're coming in high, you're coming in with high expectations for this Philly season, and then you get knocked down a peg against the Atlanta Braves. They take 2 of 3. Then you lose 2 of 3 to the Cincinnati Reds at home, and you're like, okay, same start as last year, same issues as last year. Had those issues gone away, Scotty, because of 1 win? No. But they're at a better point now than they were to start last year or even 2 years ago. And I think the thing that continues to stick out to me, man, this staff, the pitching that the Phillies are throwing out there on a nightly basis is, I don't know if it's sustainable, right? When you're talking about guys at the back end of your rotation, when you're talking about some of these bullpen guys, but the Phillies have one of the best starting ERAs in the MLB to start the year. The bullpen's been really good. Nick Nelson and Junior Marte got to throw last night. No one else had to throw in the bullpen to keep those guys, ready to go for the remaining 3 games of the series against the Pirates. But Ranger Suarez has been absolutely phenomenal. Spencer Turnbull through 2 starts, phenomenal. Zach Wheeler doesn't have a win. They are 0-3 in Zach Wheeler starts, and he's been sensational. His last start against the Cardinals, not his best work. I believe he gave up 3 runs or so against the Cardinals, but got literally 0 run support from the Phillies. None. Zip.
Yeah.
Got shut out that night. So You know that's going to change, right? They're going to win games when Wheels is on the mound this season. Nola gave up 2 solo shots the other day. You thought it was one of those rocky starts. That's all he gave up. He gave up 2 runs in that win over the Cards. This starting staff, man, has been really, really good. The bullpen, for the most part, has been really, really good. If that's something that can continue into the summer, late into the summer, because we all trust blindly that the bats are going to heat up.
Yeah.
Kind of like last night, right? If you get this type of pitching, there is going to be a pennant race in the NL East. Like, I know we got off to this rocky start. Oh, the same issues from last year. When's this going to change? I'm tired of the same old story in the regular season. You get this pitching from this staff and this bullpen with what you know this lineup is going to eventually do at some point. This team is going to go on major, major winning streaks this summer, and they're going to compete for the division.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point here today because it's been, like you said, a little bit of a rocky start, but they're now over 500. I texted you the other day, like, just get me over 500 and we'll be in good shape here as we move forward, man. And that's all it's really about. And I think, to your point, it's like we've had, one game maybe where Bryce Harper has, had one of those games, right? Like we've yet to have like a Kyle Schwarber like monster game, right?
Oh.
A Trey Turner takeover. So like we've had the Alec Bohms, we've had the Brandon Marshes, we've had the pitching staff that have showed up. Right. It's almost like you're just waiting for those bigger bats to show up, and they're going to show up at some point. It's going to happen better sooner than later. But to your point, it's almost as if the pieces that you were kind of worried about coming into the season or the parts of the team, the bullpen, like the starting rotation, those were the things that we were worried about, whereas the bats were what we weren't worried about. We know that they're going to score runs, but it feels as if they're filling in the other areas right now, which is great to see. So, man, I totally agree with you on the pitching staff. Brandon Marsh and Alec Bohm. I mean, they obviously carried last night. They did their thing. Alec Bohm, even more specifically, has just been on a tear. But I can't wait to see what it looks like when these other guys really get going.
I agree.
It's gonna be interesting over this next stretch
because it's coming.
Yeah, and you have the matchups for it to happen. I know the Pirates, they've started the season, they're 9-4, whatever.
Right.
You have the matchups that you can get ahead of the record here, and start to compete with the Braves. You're only 1 game back so far, right? All that smashing that the Braves did that first series,
and they're
1 game ahead of you.
Pitching issues.
Yeah,
bottom line,
Spencer Strider might miss the whole season.
Yep.
I mean, well, let me correct. Has there been an update on that?
No, but the last update was that he might need Tommy John. So that's never a good sign.
Yeah. Never a good sign.
UCL, it's the elbow with a guy that throws as hard as him. Not looking great in Atlanta. Max Fried, as we know, got knocked out after 2/3 inning work against the Phillies on the second game of the season. Right? You have
the
Charlie
Braves
Morton,
got crushed yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice. Yeah, 16-4 by the Mets. My God, dude.
Their starter, who I did not know who he was at the time. I was betting the Braves yesterday afternoon. I didn't because I didn't know who the hell this starter was.
Winans or whatever.
And next thing you know, I think he gave up 7 runs in the first 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah.
So, they have pitching issues. The Phillies don't right now. Now, again, it's kind of funny because we're waiting for the bats to do what we know they can do. But we're also, I don't want to say like waiting for the pitching to come back down to earth. Like maybe this is really who they are. But like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, can this staff, can this bullpen, are they this good? Are they a team, 3 or sub-3 ERA as an organization? Because that's what they're playing like right now. Like Ranger Suarez, dude. Ranger Suarez is so dialed in through his first 3 starts. And I know people before the season were talking breakout year. And I was hopeful. I didn't know if he could stay healthy. And again, it's a long season. 3 starts does not define a season. Knock on wood, he has to stay healthy, right? But he's locked in. Listen, no one's expecting Spencer Turnbull.
Pitch more innings than Nola. Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy, man.
And no one's expecting Spencer Turnbull to continue to throw shutouts and get into the 6th, 7th inning work. But I mean, if Spencer Turnbull is your number 5 and your number 5 has like a 4 or sub-4 ERA on the season, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? Christopher Sanchez, little rocky against the Nationals, really good in his first. Like, he's looked fine through his first 2 starts. I mean,
yeah, I think to answer your question, man, I think so. I think they can keep it going. Like, Zach Wheeler hasn't won a game, to your point. So, like, while they've been pitching so well, as you said earlier, those wins are going to come with Zach Wheeler. Like, we know that they're going to win games with Zach Wheeler on the mound. Yeah. Nola can be better. Like, he can be better than what he is. He can also be worse. We know that as well. Ranger Suarez, though, he's that guy that we've seen him in the moments. Like, we've seen him in the postseason have moments. Now it's time for him to put together that full product, that full season of where he's at right now. And can he pitch at this level all season? I mean, that's asking a lot. That he's playing like the best pitcher on the roster right now.
No one's expecting.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Shutout work, but I'll say this: if Ranger Suarez continues whatever this magic is he is going on through the first 3 games, or first 3 starts, I should say, the Phillies did not need to go and get Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. That will be my takeaway. Now, don't get me wrong. If Ranger Suarez was pitching like this and you had one of those 2 guys as well, you'd be like, oh, my God. Yeah. But this is the question, right? You have Wheeler and Nola at the top of your rotation. Is there a drop-off between them and Ranger? And is there a big drop-off between Ranger and the rest of the guys? You need that filler point in the rotation to solidify things. If he continues this work, I mean, hats off to Dave Dombrowski, because now you can be super aggressive at the deadline and really figure out what you need at the deadline, who can fit where, what the price tags look like on those guys. So watching him last night, Scotty, he never even had an inning of trouble. And mind you, this is a Pirates team who, like you said,
they've been playing well, though.
Playing very well, 9-3 coming into last night. Are they a 9-3 ball club? No, I don't think so.
Right.
But they were scoring a lot through the first 12 games of the season. I believe top 10 in runs per game. Scotty, he didn't have an inning. He didn't have an inning with more than 1 base runner on the base paths. And I believe he only had 3 innings out of 6 where he had a base runner on base. Like, he only gave up a single. Like that was it every inning. Maybe they stole a base and got to second. Like, that's all they accomplished against Ranger Suarez last night. And then by the time it got to – Junior Marte came in and held down the fort for an inning. But by the time it got to Nick Nelson, where there'd be any worry or stress on the back end of the bullpen, the bats had come alive and broken this game wide open. So you were able to throw out Nick Nelson for 2 innings and keep the rest of your bullpen fresh, because it is a 4-game series, not a 3-game series against the Pirates. So the pitching's been huge, man. But again, I keep going back to the bats because you know it's coming. And for me, it almost has to be against this stretch, Scotty, because we looked at – if you look beyond even this Pirates series, who do we have? The Rockies. And the White Sox. At home.
And then the Reds again.
At home. Like, this right here, yes, it is lovely. It is fantastic that Brandon Marsh continues to come up big in big moments. Yeah. It's awesome that Alec Boehm continues to hit with runners in scoring position. It was awesome to see Bryson Stott lift one over the right field wall last night.
Yeah.
But you're just waiting. You're waiting for Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos and
JT Realmuto in the same game.
To click at the same time.
They've each had like one game where they've had multi-hits, right? Like JT had a monster game a few games back, or a monster 2-game stretch a few games back.
Against the Nationals,
Yeah, like they've all had stretches, right? They've all had like one game where each of them have had moments. We're waiting for it to be a game where, you know, maybe Kyle Schwarber cranks one out of the yard, first bat of the game, right? and then maybe, Trey Turner gets on base, and then Bryce Harper cranks another one, or gets on base, and Alec Bohm. Like, we're waiting for that type of explosion just to let us know that they're still intact, right? Like, that's what we need to see. But I do agree with you, man. I wanted to ask you, though, since the last time we got on here, we weren't on Wednesday. Rojas, he's had a few hits, right? He's shown a few signs. How are we feeling about the lineup right now? How are we feeling about obviously Marsh showing he's an everyday guy. We've wanted Stott to be that everyday guy as well, right?
Yeah, they both need to be, for sure.
Yeah. They've shown that so
you're
far.
Talking about one position.
Yeah.
Right? So you're either talking about Marsh in left and whoever in center, or you're talking about Marsh in center, Merrifield in left. There's one spot open in the lineup. Let's just call it the number 9 spot. Look, I think the one thing over this before last night, this just horrid stretch of Phillies offense, I think it's clear that like Johan Rojas is the least of your worries, right? Like when you're getting shut out against the Cardinals, when you're scoring one or two runs against the Nationals, and Bryce Harper is hitting into double plays, and Nick Castellanos is batting 089 at one point. Like when you have these guys that are being paid $300 million, $200 million that are expected to produce, and they're not. Well, how am I going to in turn say, you know what the problem is? The dude in the 9-hole can't hit. No, nobody's hitting right now. But I will say, I think it's naive not to think about the fact that you're piling on to the issues, right? Like if your offense is struggling, I'm not saying that Christian Pache or Whit Merrifield are the answers to the offensive struggles at times, okay? But if you're struggling the way the lineup has been at that point, is it smart to add on, to pile on by throwing a guy in the 9-hole that you know is probably not going to come up to you? Now, for some reason, some way, he has a multi-hit RBI type of game, the first game against the Cardinals when they come away with a win. So he was really good in that game. Yeah. He struggled the 2 after that, and then he didn't play last night. So I think Rob Thompson's kind of handling it well so far, where he's giving him a little bit of a leash. He's giving him 2-3 games in a row, but then he's kind of saying, all right, you know what? You got to sit down for a second. We need to see what need to see what can come from this now. So, yeah, man, I'm kind of indifferent on the Johan Rojas train right now because he's not even a top 6-7 reason in the lineup why the Phillies offense has been struggling. But you know he's not the answer to any problems when it comes to offense. So is it smart to pile on in that regard, right? Like, do you not just try to play Marsh and Merrifield in the outfield and hope that, at the back end of the lineup, Merrifield can provide a spark or some pop or whatever it is in that veteran presence? I don't know. We'll see what Thompson decides to do, I guess, tonight and over the weekend with him.
Yeah, no, it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like you said, a 4-game series, so 3 more against the Pirates. What are you looking for over this next, how many you got against the Rockies? You got 3 against the Rockies, so 6 games. And then 3 more against the White Sox at home.
Yeah,
so 9 games.
That's right. It was a 10-game. Yeah, it was a 10-game homestand. They won the first one last night. I'm being as honest as I can be. This needs to be at least a 7-3 homestand. At least, like, if they're 6-4, like that's cool. 2 games over. At the end of it, like they're 1 game over 500. If they end the 10-game stand 6-4, you would finish it. You would be 2 games over 500 at that point.
Yeah.
So they're 7-6 now. What would they be? 13-11. That's cool. That shouldn't be the case with the opponents you have lined up at home.
Yeah,
right now.
I agree, man.
I know it's kind of, I don't know, when we watch the offense struggle and you can't expect so much out of the staff each and every night, but there has to be a streak coming. A 2-game winning streak's cool. Winning series is cool, but you need to put your stamp by sweeping a bad team. The Colorado Rockies should be a sweep. Hell, the Chicago White Sox might need to be a sweep. You probably need to go 5-1 over those 6. I don't think it's good enough to just win 2 out of 3 against both the Rockies and the White Sox. You need to sweep one of them and win the series in the other one.
Yeah, exactly. If you're trying to prove something, if you're trying to compete in the NL East, You need to. I mean, the 7-3 that you mentioned will
7-3 is minimum. Like I need, like I'm looking at like an 8-2 type of stretch or something.
Because the 7-3 would put them at what? 13,
3 games over 500. Yeah, like
13-9 or something. 13-10.
Yeah,
something like that. So yeah, that sounds about right. The 8 would be significant, right? If you could just maybe drop one of these 4 against the Pirates, and then win only lose one. So sweep one of those next 2 teams, sweep one of them, and then only lose one in the other series.
Right.
So
I'm not great at math here, but if you do that,
we're getting into some deep math.
If you go 8-2 over the stretch,
you're
looking at 14-8. That's what you'd be looking at, I believe, to start the year.
That's with an 8-2 stretch, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
they already have one win from this stretch.
If not, you're 13-9. Okay, 7-3, you're 13-9.
Whatever. Give me multiple games above 500. Multiple, not just one or two. Let's get multiple games above 500.
Because we all know this schedule is not going to continue.
Yeah.
You're not going to have stretches at home against the Rockies and the White Sox and then the Cardinals, away on with the Cardinals. You're not going to have these stretches. So
then you go on
to continue a run.
You go on a 10-game away trip, right? And it's against the Reds, the Padres, and the Angels. So
I do want to ask you a quick question, though.
Yeah.
We focus on Johan Rojas. We focus on some of these other guys. Oh, what would you do with them? Where would you put them? Would you rest them? At what point do you have to sit Nick Castellanos down?
I knew you were going there, man. I knew it.
At what point? Not for an extended period of time. At what point do you need, just for him to hit the reset button and just give him 2 games off or something like that? Because I know he had a 2-hit night against the Cardinals the other day. I mean, my God, I don't think either ball got out of the infield. He doesn't have an extra base hit on the year. Obviously, clearly doesn't have a home run from that standpoint. I don't believe he's even hitting over $140 right now. I mean, the dude's bad, right? Really, really, he's an automatic out. And I get it. He's one of the guys you paid. He's probably one of the leaders in the club, but for all the guys you give flack to, and you rotate in and out of spots and give them days off. Nick Castellanos hasn't gotten a day off.
Yeah, he's Tobias Harris, isn't he?
Literally, man.
That's literally who he is. God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Much more of an upside than Tobias Harris. When
he does, and so much more aura
on fire
as well. Yeah, it's so interesting, man. The only caveat question I would ask back to you is sit him or rest him for who? Merrifield. Right. I'm like, who are we throwing over there in right field? It would have to be
so your outfield would have to be Rojas, Merrifield, and Marsh. So whether you put Marsh in right and Merrifield in left, however you want to do it, but
maybe you do it more to give a kick in the ass to Castellanos than to actually have a punch from Merrifield.
Absolutely.
Whatever. Maybe you do.
Absolutely.
But maybe it's more of a kick to the ass for Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty, you and I have talked. You brought up the Tobias Harris point, right? Listen, nobody's going to sit here and try to kid yourself with the fact that Ricky Council Jr. is a better basketball player than Tobias Harris.
Yeah,
he's not a better basketball player. We know this, right? He's not.
Yeah.
But when Tobias Harris was really going, when we were on the show, and when he just didn't go for a rebound and then came back and just ran past the player, and his head was just woof. We literally said, man, you need to sit him down. And for anybody, that doesn't mean the replacement is a better player or going to bring more for you. It's what it can do for him and what it can do for your team in the future by him hitting that reset button and getting his mind right. I think you have to do that for Nick Castellanos at some point.
Yeah.
I
do agree with you.
I mean, there's no trust at the plate. There is no trust. I mean, he comes up to bat, whether he's leading off, whether there's no men on with 2 outs, whether his bases loaded and 1 out, it doesn't matter. Nick Castellanos up at the plate, I have zero confidence in him coming through with a reasonable at bat. I'm talking by reasonable, I mean left hand, flinging it out across the bottom left part of the zone out of the zone and swinging at something in the dirt. It's
could
hard
that
every
could
time.
that be a big regret, coming out of the offseason? Like, there were rumors about trying to move Nick Castellanos.
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself, I mean, with his showing, I mean, he's had one hot moment. He had like that hot half a season to get him an all-star bid last year. And that's really been it. Like, that's really been it
run. And
in a little bit of a postseason run.
Yeah.
Before he goes like bitterly cold. You know what I mean? And so, like, what is his value then? And so I guess that's why you can't even regret it at that point. But I don't know. It is interesting. It's like, is this just like, how long before this is just what it is? You know what I mean? Like, we've been waiting. Like, we've been consistently
waiting.
It's
been 2 years now, bro.
Even if he has, a 3-game hit streak where he's getting it out of the infield, how do we have faith that he's not going to fall back in?
And who's that remind you of?
Oh man, I don't know if this analogy has been made before, but like, this is correct. Like, Tobias Harris and Nick Castellanos, like, it is crazy to put those two guys in the same pod. But yeah, man,
you
gotta try something.
You love the attitude from Costi, right? You love the assholeness at times, right? But that persona, that attitude, that only works when you're playing well, man.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't show.
You just look like a dickhead otherwise.
Yeah. This is a fact, though.
That's fair. That is fair.
This is true.
That is fair. Sixers never made the World Series, never made the Eastern Conference Finals. So, like, yes, there are levels. I would agree with that, TR. I would agree.
My whole point about this is, like, we want Nick to work, right? So we're just looking for something to get him back into a groove, if there is a groove to get back into. But yeah, man. So let's get into some Sixers talk. If you had to give a prediction over the weekend, 3 more games left against the Pirates, how do they finish this 4-game stretch?
2-1 over this last 3, right? So I think they go 3-1 against the Pirates, and I do think they continue to keep it going and moving in the right direction. I don't know if that's going to include Nick Castellanos, if that's going to include Johan Rojas as part of that trending or that trajectory up. But like you said earlier, it's Nick Castellanos does fall into that pod of the big bats and the big money, right? Who you're counting on. But, like you said with Rojas earlier, it's like, if Bryce gives you no hits in a game, if Schwarber's giving you nothing, if JT's giving you nothing, we can't really look at Johan Rojas. So if those guys if they can get it going, then we don't have to rely on a guy like Johan Rojas and even a guy like Nick Castellanos. But once again, it's much more of a travesty for Nick Castellanos for us to be saying this about him. But I would go 2-1, man. I do think they're going in the right direction, regardless of individual trajectories right now.
No, I agree. But speaking of the man,
hell no. I swear that'll be it. That'll be it. I'm not going to be like a fan of another team. I just am not going to be a fan. Like, I'll just be an NBA guy. That's what I'll be. I'll just be a guy. I'm not going to be a fan. If they sign Tobias Harris back to, like, anything other than, like, a minimum deal. Like, and I know he won't take a minimum deal, so it won't happen.
It's so
funny. I don't want it to happen. I don't even want that to happen. But you know what I mean, man.
I was just going to say, like, obviously, like, you would – all right, like, we all joke around about getting him out of here, but it's like, well, if he came back on, like, a minimum or whatever kind of deal, like, blah, 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 I still don't even want him back.
Yeah.
And like, dude, you watch this stretch now. He's back now, but, you watch this little 3-game stretch of him not on the floor, and it's like, dude, they look better.
It's night and day.
Yeah, it's like there's no cogs in there's no stretches of 2-3 minutes in the offense where he took 3 shots and, they're in a scoring drought or like they look completely different without him on the floor. But his last game, even though, again, that's the problem, guy. Like, his last game, he played really well. He attacked the glass. He was physical.
against the Pistons.
It's the Pistons, man, at home. What am I supposed to take from that? Like, am I like, okay, like, good. Like, let's continue this train forward. But like, how am I supposed to have any ounce of confidence in this dude when I only see this against the Detroit Pistons?
Exactly. And the thing about Tobias, we talk about like, oh, if we could bring him back on a minimum deal, for a lot less than what he's being paid right now, it's like, sure. In like when you think of it, like hypothetically, it sounds great. But then you remember that you're giving the head coach an option of putting him in the game.
Yes.
And I don't want the coach to have an option for it.
And I'll repeat, it's not really an option because money talks. And when a dude's on a max, they're not sitting him. It doesn't happen.
Yeah. I know. I had to. It wasn't an argument on X the other day, but it was a conversation around this. Like, people were talking about Nick Nurse because I had put out a tweet. Like, I forget what game it was. It was a few games back, like right before the weekend. This past weekend, it was a big win. What was their last big win? It wasn't the Pistons.
The Heat.
Was it the Heat when did Embiid play in that game? It was the game where they had the plays at the end. Maxey had the layup. Batum had the pass. It was great out of bounds plays at the end of the game. I'm trying to remember. Pistons, Spurs. Was it the Spurs game with Maxey?
Yeah,
was it the 52-point game?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was. So after that game, I tweeted out. I was like, "This is why we bring Nick Nurse into the rotation here, right? Into the plans for the future because." Those out of bounds plays at the end of that game against the Spurs in overtime to create double overtime. Those plays were incredible. Even the play to Kelly Oubre in the corner, which he missed the shot, he was wide open with like 0.6 seconds or some shit, like under a second left.
Yeah.
And somebody, came back at me for that tweet, like, well, this is why Nick Nurse, I still have questions because he still keeps playing Tobias Harris. And it's like this. I do think this it's incredible to think about Pat Bev, what he first said when he went to Milwaukee and how Philadelphia was a little bit different in how guys had to be played based on their contracts in a sense. And it made me wonder, is he talking directly about Tobias Harris? But Tobias Harris is his guy, so I don't feel like he would talk bad about him like that, like out in public. Yeah. But it made me wonder, like, it could be like that. Like Daryl Morey, Josh Harris, I'm paying my money out to this player. This guy needs to be on the court. He needs to make things happen.
So
it's not the right way, but
to that point, though, I would argue, I don't know what Pat's talking about in Milwaukee. Like, find me the player in Milwaukee that gets paid that's not playing. Find me the player across the NBA that's getting paid a max deal that's not playing. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it the smart decision.
Yeah.
It's what happens. It's just what happens. Like, you can't, I don't know. Like,
that's fair too, TR. Pat talks. Yeah. He just talks. That is very
this
fair.
Dude, bro. And by the way, like, I'm not even going to get on the Patrick Beverley train, but like, I thought like he needed surgery on his wrist. He went on his pod talking about how the doc said it ain't good. We need surgery. Now he's in a starting role.
Yeah.
I thought you needed surgery.
Win the game the other night against was it the Magic?
Yeah. So I don't know. But anyway, man, no more negative Tobias Harris talk. No more Patrick Beverley talk.
Get that
the
out
Sixers
the way.
Team has won 6 in a row since Joel Embiid has returned. They have 2 more against the Magic and the Nets. Should be an 8-game winning streak heading into the postseason, Scotty. Regardless if you're in the play-in, if you're a 6 seed, regardless of what it is, that is as good a basketball as the Sixers have been playing heading into this spot since the 17-18 season, with the best crew surrounding Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And I'll say it, it's the best version of Joel Embiid heading into the playoffs. He won an MVP last year. He missed over 2 months' time this year. Still probably not 100%. Not 100% in game shape. I don't care. This is the best Joel Embiid with the best supporting cast around him, playing high level of basketball heading into the postseason right now, man. And I can't wait for it. Like, I'm honestly at a point where I do care. Obviously, I'm looking at matchups, and I'd rather not have to sweat out a win or go home type of scenario, right?
Yeah.
I'm almost at a point where, like, I have no fear of the Miami Heat walking into the Wells Fargo Center. Maybe that's naive of me. Maybe I'm just throwing out the past and what they've done in the past. Maybe I'm disregarding Jimmy Butler and what he turns, his level up to in the playoffs. Maybe I'm being naive. I really don't care, because they're going to win that game, and then they're going to be the 7th seed, and they're either going to play Milwaukee or the Magic or whoever ends up with that number 2 seed. So we could talk about how they can avoid the play-in. I would love for them to avoid the play-in. If they do avoid the play-in, I'm pretty sure they avoid the Boston Celtics until the Eastern Conference Finals. Is that correct? If they were able to achieve the number 6 seed. So obviously that's something you have to look at as well.
I don't know, man. It's once again, it brings up that topic. It's like, do you want to avoid them until the Eastern Conference Finals, or do you just want to get it out the way and see if you can beat them while you have Embiid healthy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would have to say yes, right? Like, I would like the easier path to at least get there. We finally break through, we get there, and then it's like Sixers, Celtics for a trip to the NBA Finals. Like, what's better than that? You know what I mean? So I would rather avoid them. But to your point, to me, I think Eastern Conference Finals is a different subject. I think when it comes to first, second round, doesn't matter. Like, people are like, you got to stay out of the 8 seed. Why? So I can play the Bucks first round, then them in the second round. Like, I'll just play them in the first round. If you're talking Eastern Conference Finals, I would rather wait till the Eastern Conference Finals.
It's like that ticking clock, right? Of like, how many 7-game series can you get through before Joel has that awkward landing? And that's what I mean with like playing Boston earlier. But I know what you mean.
My other thing would be, how about we let Boston have 2 before they get to us? Maybe they have to go 6 or 7 games in the second round versus whoever they play, and not sweep the first round series and then get us in the second round with home court. So that is something I'm looking at as well.
I think a Heat matchup for them first round is like worst nightmare type of situation, because like, I think the Heat almost match up with the Boston Celtics a little bit better.
I mean, they just again, completely different team. I understand that, right? Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis there. No, but I mean, look what the Heat just did with them. Last year.
Just matchup for matchup, though. Like, it just feels like a better matchup. Like Jimmy, directly with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, and then guys can match up across the board. And then you have
this could be an interesting one too, man. What if the Knicks could find them before they get to us? Not that the Knicks are going to. Not that I think the Knicks are going to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series, but could go 6 or 7.
Yeah, I don't know. You know how I felt about the Knicks of late, but now I almost feel like the Knicks are catching a little bit of hype, man. Like the Jalen Brunson effect. It's like, all of this was being calculated without Joel Embiid in the mix. Like, I don't know.
Which again, I go back to, I still don't understand, because didn't we all know this, right? Like, this was the timeline point out. Like they said, he's getting this surgery done because he can come back before the playoffs. And then all of a sudden things went south and people started acting like the Sixers won't have Joel Embiid in the playoffs. And this is who they will be. Like, I'm still confused by how the narrative changed over that course. But here we are.
He's come back, man. I mean, just 24, 29, 30, and 37. So he's just slowly building up to his MVP status again.
And by the way, 24 is in the return. By the way, 24 is in the return, in which he helped will them to a monster come from behind victory in the last 3 minutes against the number 1 seed at the time in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
So big win, less achievement with 24 points. And then after 1 game back, read that again? 29, 30, 37. Is that what you just told me?
Yep, 29, 30, 37, 30, 12, and then he had 37, 11, and 8.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say he's back to being the best player on the planet. Yeah.
He's up there, man. He's got some competition. Yeah. There's some guys balling out right now, but he's up there.
You know what? I'm feeling good on this Friday. I don't give a fuck. Best player, or I don't care. I don't.
I'm gonna let him get his wheels together a little bit more before I start declaring anything yet. But I do feel it. I think at the end of the day, like I do think there's a great possibility the Sixers get the 6th seed. Like I know we haven't talked about that much.
Yeah, so it's
but
we
I
have to
do
win
think
out.
they get it.
We have to win out, and the Pacers could win out, and then we get the 6th seed, right?
Yeah, that's one way that it could happen.
And then I think that's like the most reasonable way I looked at.
There's another way, basically,
yeah.
if Orlando plays the Sixers and then they play the Bucks on Sunday. So if they were to lose both of those games and Pacers win one, then we would also move up to the 6 as well. So it's a possibility, and I mean the Bucks, they have something to play for. The Knicks are right behind them for the 2 seed.
No Giannis though for the last 3 of the regular season.
Yeah. Well, they did just beat. So we play the Magic tonight. The Magic of late, they've lost to the Rockets 118 to 106, and then they lost to the Bucks 117 to 99 on Wednesday.
Okay. So you're telling me a team that overachieved, that's not ready for this moment, has started to falter once the lights get a little brighter? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Fighting for seeding and you lose to the Rockets. That's an interesting end to your regular season.
The Giannis-less Bucks. But you know, the Magic, they're one of those teams, like they're fun. It's Paolo Banchero. He's a great player. Like
they're a very good young team.
They don't have shooting.
But
and
I mean,
like when you don't have shooting, you're not gonna win in the NBA. Like they don't scare me at all. There's nobody on that team that can come out like a CJ McCollum last night and hit 9 threes and get him one game against you. Like there's nobody on their team that's doing that. And that's the problem. Like they don't have any shooting. Really, that scares me at all.
I said this to you before. I remember
even the Pacers have shooting. The Pacers can score the rock. Like I don't know. You could argue the Magic are the worst team in the Eastern
talking about, the Magic.
Playoffs.
The Magic were only a game behind Milwaukee at that point for the 2 seed.
And
if they got there and we'd be the 7 seed, I like.
To be fair, they're only 3 games back now, but because of those 2 losses, like that's what they were playing for, right?
I'm being dead serious. If that was the outcome, right? They never faltered. They got the 2 seed. We'd be the 7 seed. It might be the first 2 seed to get swept or lose in 5 in NBA history. Like I pray that series is not. If they met this Magic in the first round, the Sixers win in no more than 5 games.
I'm not even joking, bro. Let me just walk it back. I'm not even gonna. It's not worth saying. It doesn't need to be said.
No.
I think the Sixers could win against the Magic without Joel Embiid. I think they could beat them with Tyrese Maxey as the guy. I think he could be the best player in the series. Like I think maybe that's just speaking more to Tyrese Maxey and what he's capable of, but that's just what I believe, man. Still. Once Paolo can add like that next level to his game of floor spacing, 3-point shooting, being able to hit from anywhere on the court, that's when that team will go to the next level, as well as adding shooters around him. But right now, they're like, honestly, out of all of the teams in the Eastern Conference, outside of the other play-in teams, that's easily the worst team in the Eastern Conference. Like, easily. Like, the Pacers are right there, but they can score the ball. They can score the rock with the best of them. So, like, they're better. Like, I don't know.
And I think it's
who would you take out of Pacers and Orlando, like in a matchup?
Oh, the Pacers scare me way more.
They scare me way more, but them going against each other.
Oh, I'll pick the Pacers still. I know that the Pacers for 2/3, maybe the entire season, have not played a lick of defense. They tightened up at one point. They're still not a good defensive team. They can run you out of the gym. They can score 140 on you. Now, we know playoff basketball is a different world, right? We know you're probably not scoring 130 to 100, 120, 122, 22. Yeah. The Magic, they just won't have enough firepower.
It's
and
like Ken Halliburton.
Oddly enough, the last time I looked, the Magic had decent defensive metrics. I think they were like top 12 or 13 defensive.
They're a long team.
They're good. They're okay. But it's like when you think of them matching up with the Sixers, there's no world in which you go, tonight could be a tough night at the office, like offensively for the Sixers. No, it won't be. So
we watched Embiid.
I think it's interesting if they can somehow get that matchup. But so then what would it be, Sky? So help me out here. If they do accomplish the 6 seed and avoid the play-in, what's the most likely 3 seed scenario then?
So I mean, most likely it would be the Knicks, yeah. So it'd be 6 versus 3. Like if things stayed the same, minus the Pacers winning, their last 2 games, us winning our last 2, Orlando would fall to the 7 or 8 seed. And then the Pacers would rise to the 5 seed. They would play the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. The Cavs are 1 game back of the Knicks for the 3 seed. The Knicks are 1 game back of the Bucks for the 2 seed. So all things being said, the Pacers, Orlando are in the same spot right now. Sixers are 1 game back of both of those teams. So if what we need to happen to get to the 6 seed happens, most likely the Knicks will be the 3 seed, and that's who you would play.
I'm going to need the Cavs to rise up to the 3 seed.
Huh? You want the Cavs?
Yeah. Yes, I do. And that is not me saying I'm scared of the Knicks in any stretch. I think the Sixers beat the Knicks. I'll say in 6.
The Knicks have the Nets and the Bulls to finish the season, so they're going to win those games.
They're going to win both. Yep.
Who do the Bucks have? The Bucks have the Magic and someone else. Magic and Thunder. So
with no Giannis.
Lose to the Thunder, and we could use them to beat the Magic.
We would end up Milwaukee Sixers 3-6 instead of 2-7 potentially.
That is an outcome that could happen. Now, if Milwaukee loses both, and let's say Cleveland wins their last 2, I'm not sure how like tiebreakers would work there, because they're 2. Yeah, Cleveland's 2 games back of Milwaukee.
Okay. Yeah, and we don't know the tiebreaker.
So there is a possibility. Cleveland. Who does Cleveland play the last 2 games? They play the Pacers. We need the Cavs to lose to the Pacers ultimately there. And then they play the Hornets, so that should be a W for them to end the season there. I don't know. It's interesting, man. There's a lot of different ways this stuff could play out. Most likely it's going to be the Bucks, Knicks, Cavs of some sort, whether you're the 7, the 8, or, well, not the 8, but the 7 or the 6 seed.
Right.
Yeah, I feel you, though. I saw Shaq last night talking on TNT. Said he guaranteed the Heat would beat the Sixers in the play-in game. He guaranteed that the Heat would beat the Sixers in the play-in. So that was interesting. At the end of the day, the Heat, it's not necessarily that they scare me. They would scare me more on a 7-game series, I feel like, than a 1-game series, if that makes sense. Like figuring things out, adjustments, Eric Spoelstra, his expertise, right? Like
I'll tell you, that's
where it gets a little fishy. But I still once again, you have Joel Embiid, you have like you said, the best player on the court for that matchup.
Listen,
so
my thing with the Heat, different from past year, the Heat are it's funny, they're very similar to.
Is Terry Rozier really a Miami Heat guy?
That's
is he really a Heat culture guy? Heat culture.
My first question is how sustainable. Like we talked about this with the Phillies before the year. How sustainable is it to just push your way through the regular season? We're a wild card, we're this, we're that, and then go on a run in the postseason every year. Miami Heat. How sustainable is it to put yourself behind the 8 ball year in and year out and have to play as an 8 or 7 seed and play in the play-in tournament and do these things to get back to the finals or the Eastern Conference Finals? So that's another year of them playing behind the 8 ball and having to fight extra hard. B, they just don't have the aura that they've had before, right? So you mentioned it. They bring in Terry Rozier at the deadline. Terry Rozier can be a killer offensively on certain nights. Jaime Jaquez has looked like a really nice draft pick. They still have Caleb Martin. Like they have guys, right? But they don't feel they're like they scared me more when they had Max Strus and Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin and these shooters around Jimmy. They just don't feel like the same connected offensive team.
Yeah, and I watched, Caleb Martin activate Tyrese Maxey, and that showed me something as well. Also, we know Tyrese Maxey gives the Miami Heat the work. I mean, every single time this man plays the Miami Heat, past the Christmas game, he does go in. So, I do feel you. And Jaquez, to TR's point, Jaime Jaquez, I don't know if I'm saying his name right at all, but he definitely fits like the Heat culture thing there. They do, like you said, they have players, but
But Jaime Jaquez isn't taking over a playoff
different.
game. Nikola Jovic isn't taking over a playoff game. Like,
I'm trying to see their
I don't know.
Their injury report. Like, is Tyler Hero? Is he good?
Right.
Is he
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think he's played in like a month or more. Like, so
he's not on their injury report, but
so then I would say
he's played recently. They played the Mavs the other night.
He said Hero's back. Yeah.
Hero is back. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Exactly, bro. Like, just let him see Bam in the postseason. Bagless Bam. Bam against Joel Embiid with a trip to the 7 seed on the line. Let me see it this year. Like 2 years, like what are you gonna say? Oh well, remember what happened 2 years ago? Tobias Harris over me again. Different Joel Embiid, different team around him. No Tyrese Maxey not being this Tyrese Maxey. Yeah. You remember? You had Kyle Lowry. We had Kyle Lowry.
That's the thing that's getting lost here. I think, with when people talk about the Sixers and this new version around Joel Embiid, it's Tyrese Maxey, man. Like, he is the best player that Joel Embiid has had beside him since Jimmy Butler. Like, Tyrese Maxey this year is better than James Harden.
Yep.
He's better than Ben Simmons. Like, he's been better than Ben Simmons, right? Like, Tyrese Maxey is the best two-man, the best Robin that Embiid has ever had. Mind you, this is the best version of Embiid. Yeah, Nick Nurse. We haven't even talked about Nick Nurse. I mean, like, we talked a little bit about him at the beginning of the segment, but
the list
that was the big difference as well, right? Like, bringing Nick Nurse in, a guy that has won a championship in this era, right? Like, not Doc Rivers from the 2007s or whatever.
With the big three.
This era of winning a championship, his expertise and what he does. Like,
I mean, the list for me just keeps going on. Like,
Oubre.
But have we had a Kelly Oubre? Have we had a Nico Batum? We haven't had all of these guys like that. Just
Buddy Hield coming on a little bit of late.
Yeah.
I mean, Campaign can heat up. Like, and that's what I meant about
Campaign has NBA Finals experience.
Somehow, like, that's what I meant about, like, the Orlando Magic, just using them as an example. But, like, guys that can, like, just win you one game. Like, a Campaign can get hot, like, and hit 5 threes in one game, and that can win you a playoff game somehow.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of different ways, and that's the thing. This is the deepest team they've had. This is the deepest team they've had.
On one night, if Buddy Hield comes off the bench and knocks down his first 2 threes, and you go, now I got to run out here and make sure I'm face guarding Buddy Hield because I can't leave him open on the 3-point line.
D-Melt's back.
That sucks. Yeah.
D-Melt's back. He's causing disruption back there. I mean,
Ricky Council been playing well. Listen,
we can go on for days, dude.
I know it's not traditional. I know the starters are going to play more minutes in the postseason. I'm not shrinking my rotation. Maybe by one. Like, I'm not like people go.
It would be more shrinking of the minutes than it is like shrinking them out of the rotation. It would be more shrinking the minutes. Like, if
what has
if
made
Ricky
this
Council
team special this year?
Yeah. Having versatility and variability in what they present.
So why am I going to just say, you know what, these are my 8 or these are my 9, and Buddy Hield and Campaign are out of the rotation, and Ricky Count no.
You play against the Heat, for example.
Get run.
You play against the Heat, for example. I personally think KJ Martin is a good matchup for the Miami Heat. I think his toughness, his rebounding, that's a guy you throw out there against the Miami Heat. The athleticism can match up with a Jaime Jaquez Jr., right? Like that type of matchup. But then you go to like the Bucks, right? The Bucks, they're a bigger lineup. They have Bobby Portis. They have Brook Lopez. Maybe you go the Paul Reed and Mo Bamba backup, big route. I don't know. I'm just saying you have options. You have different matchups you can go and attack. And I think Nick Nurse is that guy that is going to do that. I think that's
and not to mention what all this depth allows you to do, man, is think about how physical this team can be or these bench units can be on defense. Because no one's got to worry about foul trouble, right? Like when you run a 7-8 man unit out there, you have one scorer off the bench, but he's got 3 fouls at halftime or whatever the case may be. When you have Campaign, Kyle Lowry, DeAnthony Melton, all these guys coming off the bench. Kyle Lowry can go out there and be as physical as he wants on defense. Nico Batum can be as physical as he wants on defense because I got too early. Next man up, and I'll come back. And you know what I mean? So
just
you don't have to worry like that.
Just think back to Game 6 against Boston, and Joel Embiid passing the ball across the court to DeAnthony Melton, I believe, like 3 straight times, and it just breaks air balls, bro, like air balls.
Now, mind you, we're happy
we tried one of those. We tried one of those 3-point attempts, and then let's insert a Buddy Hield, or let's insert a campaign, or let's insert a Kyle Lowry, or a Nico Batum, or any other shooter that is on this team, because they've added so much shooting to the roster, and that's the difference we're talking about there. Like, if D-Melt is having a stinker, if Buddy Hield is having a stinker, you have other options you can go to now, and that's
why I would not shrink. And again, listen, the difficult thing is we know that the starters' minutes go up, right? Like, Maxi's probably going to play as close to 40 minutes a night as he's got, right? 38, 39, 40 minutes a night, maybe sometimes a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that leaves 8 or 9 minutes for the backup point guard, right? So are you only going to give Melton 3 minutes? Like, I know you can't really work it that way, but again, what's made this team special is their depth. So, perfect example, right? We know Tobias is going to start.
Yeah.
I better not see Tobias Harris playing 40 fucking minutes a night if he's not producing it.
That is one of my worries. That would be one. That would be like a top 3 worry for me, is that he's going to play like 35 minutes plus.
Yep. But with that,
and that's what I meant. Like,
I got to get on.
Having Tobias here. I know you got a haircut. It's Friday, man. Let's get out of here. No more Tobias Harris talk. Big games tonight for the Sixers. Let's get W's across the board, my man.
But real quick, though, Phillies debut in the City Connect jerseys.
How do you feel? Real quick.
I was going to ask you. You don't like them? No. So here's the thing. When I saw like the photo shoot come out, like when I thought they looked a little better than just like the picture of the jersey. I don't mind the hat, but I don't get it. So, like, trust me, like, I understand they were going for like the Philly flag, right? The blue and yellow, and they were, that's the City Connect. But that blue and yellow, where does that come in with the Phillies? Like, you guys do know, I'm pretty sure, Scotty, correct me if I'm wrong here. Pretty sure there was a pretty important document written in this city way, way back, right?
Yeah.
What are the colors of this country? Red, white, blue. What are some colors the Phillies already have? Red, white, blue. Pretty sure you could have connected to the city with the red and the white and some blue already, rather than going blue and yellow and making it look like a Philadelphia Union uniform.
Yeah, it is. It was an interesting decision. I think I liked it until I saw some of the other City Connect jerseys, and then that's when it like kind of disconnected for me, because like Philly does have the original flag that matches these colors. It's the like the Eagles' old jerseys that they pulled out a couple years back. It makes sense, at least. Like there is a connection, but like then you see like there was like 3 other teams around the MLB that have the same colorway for their Connect jerseys.
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's my point. You can connect to the city, but I think you need to keep it connected to the team when they're on the field. Yeah. Like, it just, I'm going to watch the game. Like, I'm going to be like, what is this?
I'm not a big like red guy. I know I got a red hat on right now. I'm not a big like red guy, so I'm not a big fan of red. Although I love my favorite jersey is the pinstripes.
The pinstripe, yeah.
I guess something that came to mind. I don't know if it's a horrible idea or not, but maybe just seeing what blue pinstripes look like the royal blue with the red Phillies across the chest, or maybe a blue Phillies across the chest with some red accent. I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box. Ultimately, I came to the same conclusion as you. I don't think I'm gonna like buy one or anything like that. I might buy a hat, maybe. The hats are kind of cool, but I'm not like a hater. I just not for me, man. That's what I would say.
But All right, guys, that is going to wrap up this Friday edition of the Phaithful Fanatic Show. We will be back with you live on Monday morning, breaking down the weekend in Philly sports. So with the Phillies, the Sixers, and potentially some more Eagles news. I know we have Eagles offseason to continue to get back to. Just playoff pushes for the Sixers.
We skipped over the Birds
Philly
today, but
we'll come
CJ
back.
Uzoma isn't moving mountains, though. We'll be all right, man.
No, but I do like it. I do like the move, though.
That Smitty extension is what we need.
Yes, sir. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM, enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys.
Peace, everybody.